it's officially 9 o'clock, so this is the time and place set for the Zoning Board of Adjustment for the City of Pittsburgh hearings on October 10th, 2024. And the first case of the morning is zone case 144 of 2024 for 106 South Linden Avenue. The applicant is identified as Timothy McNulty. Do we have Mr. McNulty or somebody representing the applicant? Oh dear. If you're
iPhone.
If you're here, is the iPhone? I'm not seeing the iPhone. Where's the iPhone?
Get back up to the attendee. Right there.
If the iPhone is Mr. McNulty or somebody representing the applicant, could you unmute so that we can hear you? Hello?
Yes.
Is this Mr. McNulty?
Is this thing hearing?
Yes, we can. Are you the only one who is going to be speaking on your behalf in this application?
My name's Aaron Cheney. I'm a neighbor of 115 57th Street, so I'm waiting for the next case at 9:10. I just logged on early.
Okay, so you're not Mr. McNulty.
No, my name's Aaron Cheney.
Okay, then please mute. Thank you. We're looking for the applicant for zone case 144 of 2024 for 106 South Linden Avenue. If you're here on behalf of the applicant, please speak up. All right. Well, without an applicant, we can't have a hearing, so we're going to see if we can find the applicant.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get his phone number.
Thank you. Again, we're looking for the applicant for 106 South Linden Avenue. I can come back another time. And for anybody who's here for the 9:10 case, no, we can't move on until it's officially 9:10. So we will continue to look for the applicant for another 3 minutes or so, but we'll move on to 9:10 when it's 9:10. All right. Do we have an applicant for zone case 144 of 2024 for 106 South Linden Avenue? Could he possibly have thought sending in the exhibits was enough?
No, he told me yesterday that he'd be on Zoom. And unfortunately he didn't. I don't have his phone number. But I'll send him an email.
Yeah.
And nobody was on there to say that it's.
Nope. Just, this does happen on occasion. I'm not seeing who he's talking about. I'm not seeing any new people joining, so. All right. Well, again, we have another 5 minutes, but we do start at 9. We have a new entry here. Nope. If you're new to join us here, we're looking for the applicant for zone case 144 of 2024 for 106 South Linden Avenue. And we do not appear to have an applicant yet. So keeping an eye. I mean, the wonders of modern technology.
I know.
Jeez. All right. Well, right at this point, it's like. It's been at 7, and then it went to 8, and then it wasn't somebody. Well, we seem to have an applicant no-show for the first case, but if I'm going to ask if anybody attending intended to speak with respect to the application at 106 Linden Avenue, even if they aren't the applicant. Did anybody attending have any questions or concerns about the application for 106 South Linden Avenue? That's smart, checking in the hall. All right, so I'm not seeing any hands raised, but maybe we can, if he shows up at the end, maybe we can hear it. Okay. All right, so I think we're going to we're going to assume that the applicant is having some technical difficulties and is not appearing, but it's still only 9:07. And we will hear the 9:10 case at 9:10. Are you sending him an email, Dan?
Yeah. Is it okay if I tell him that we can do it at the...
Well, just tell him to log in when he can log in.
Okay.
Or reply.
Okay.
Or we can reschedule to another day.
Okay.
All right, so having failed to have a hearing for the first case of the morning, and it being very close to 9:10, wait a second, we have a hand raised.
Oh, that's the applicant for the next case.
Okay, applicant for the next case, hold your horses, it's almost 9:10. All right, so we are going to move on to the next case of the morning. Just note for the record that we called the case for 106 South Linden Avenue. The applicant didn't appear, and we will try to reschedule or hear today if we hear from the applicant. Nobody who is attending currently for the 9 o'clock indicated any interest with respect to that application. So, moving on, the next case of the morning is zone case 105 of 2024 for 115 57th Street. And I do believe the applicant is identified as Matt Dearson. We have Mr. Dearson. Mr. Dearson, you'll be admitted as a panelist. Okay, Mr. Dearson, can you tell us who is attending on behalf of the applicant other than yourself? Mr. Dearson, are you with us? If you could unmute, please.
Sorry, I always get thrown by that transition. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Who else is attending on
Yes.
behalf of the applicant for this?
The owner-operator Uche Onwubenu and potentially Emanuela Okonkwo.
Okay, we
I
see
don't know
both
if
of
he was joining
those.
or not. Okay.
All right, if we could
would
admit
be it for the
Nuella and
applicant.
Uche. You should see something that say, be admitted as a panelist. So if you check that, we'll get you in. All right. So.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. I'm just going to ask everybody from the applicant team if you each swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board this morning will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Dearson, I'm assuming you do too?
I do, yeah.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Shepke, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 105 of 2024 for 115 57th Street. The application is for the renovation of an existing building for a child care facility, and they're requesting a special exception pursuant to section 911.02. Child care general is a special exception in the H district.
All right, Mr. Dearson, we have your materials. I'm assuming you're going to lead the application here?
Yes, please.
All right. Please proceed. We have your materials up.
Sure. So this is the first slide is just generally orienting you to the project site. It is at 115 57th Street, which is sort of like the bleeding eastern edge of Lawrenceville, along Butler Street. The street you can see running east-west, the main street is Butler Street. We are a half block back from Butler at the corner of 57th and Donson Way, which is obviously an alley. The project site depicted here is, and we'll get into the building a little bit more as we go, but it was built in around 1910 as a Slovenian social hall. So it's a two-story with a full basement building on a site that doesn't encompass very much more than that building. In the 20s, there was a caretaker's dwelling added to the back with floors that don't necessarily all align, and you'll see those in the photos. Also depicted on this is the location of a parking lot, which is about 290 feet up the slope of 57th Street, where we have made arrangements to lease 6 spaces from Frank Walsh of Walsh Photography, who's the owner of that building, which is the former St. Mary Assumption Church that he had purchased from the diocese probably about 15 years ago. If we go to the next slide, these are the existing zoning designations in the area. The area is obviously zoned hillside. Much of the area is zoned hillside other than a stretch directly across the street that is R1D high density. The area immediately adjacent to it is urban industrial, as was, I think, much of what was on the other side of Butler before the river designations were created. Those are now 2 of the river designations. And then just at the other end of the screen, you can see where there's an LNC, where the Shop and Save shopping center is based. But the site itself is not exactly steeply sloped. It is obviously sloped, but it slopes about the height of the basement from the back corner to the side corner, and we'll see that in the next photos, but obviously it's in that H designation. So the first photo here is looking at the building from the corner of Donson and 57th.
Okay.
Sorry, did someone?
Yeah, no. It seemed like there was background noise, but carry on. So,
Okay, sorry.
thank you for. It helps to see that this is an existing building, and you say it was a social hall.
Yes, yeah, it was again built in the teens.
Okay.
As we go along, there'll be some more photos, but I wanted to set it in context. The second photo is looking from Carnegie Street, which, though it is a street, is a pretty narrow right-of-way that hits 57th above at the other side of the block, looking down. The third photo is looking down 57th Street towards the intersection at Butler, where you can see our building. You can see sort of the housing on that street. And then the last photo is looking from Butler Street past the sort of small used car dealership on the corner towards our building across Donson. And you can see it kind of behind the one row house that is on Donson. Actually on 57th at the corner. If we go to the next photo, next slide rather. These are more immediate photos of the building itself. So the building is not currently owned by my clients. They're under a sales agreement that's got contingencies, including zoning approval. The prior owner had purchased it with the intent of using it as a performance space. He replaced the windows. He removed some debris. Not a whole lot else has happened. He's the current
I think
owner.
they got zoning approval for that. So I think we've seen this building before. Yes. So there have been some renovations. Can we move to the use? I think we understand the location and that it's an existing building. So if we could.
Certainly. Yeah. If we go to the next one, I think the one thing that I wanted to outline is the existing certificates of occupancy on file. So what's on file right now is all from the 1990s, and that is for automobile repair and detailing in the basement, appliance repair and storage on the upper two floors, and there's actually still a recorded use for the dwelling at the back, which doesn't appear to have had anyone living in it.
Mr. Dearson, as I understand it, the use that you're proposing is one that's permitted as a special exception in the H zoning district. So if it's permitted as a special exception, we don't need to go back to assuming that it's a non-conforming use. This is a new use that's being proposed under the standards. So let's move on to what's actually being proposed.
Okay, I was only bringing this up because the determination of the zoning administrator has been that our parking demand is lower than what's existing. So we do not have a parking requirement, and I know that may come up in commentary.
Well, but for the use specifically, we're more concerned about pickup and drop-off than actual traffic being generated, so I think we'd like to understand that.
Right, understood. Okay, if you scroll to the next, you can see a general plan, and I'll just have that. This is the site plan. The occupancy is going to involve renovating the three main stories and the rear portions of the building, trying to optimize those for the classroom occupancies. The total maximum occupancy that we've calculated for students in the building currently is 193. That's everything being perfect and all the ratios working out. So that's very much a maximum. Pickup and drop off is I'm going to be honest, it's not intuitive, and it is we're confining it to the street in front of the building primarily. The 6 spaces up the hill will be available both for employee parking and for drop off. If it becomes clear that they're needed for drop off, I imagine operationally the employees may park on street. There is parking across Butler as well. But I know we want to minimize the impacts on the neighborhood. We don't want to park along 57th where people are in the habit of parking for their residences. Unfortunately, in this given block, there's really just 2 parking spaces immediately in front of the building and just 2 on the block across the street because there is a fire hydrant mid-block and there are posted no parking zones at the intersections. So that's 4 spaces. Now our pickup and drop off, like any daycare, is going to be very cyclical and diffuse, but obviously drop off will be concentrated in the morning. There's no scheduled drop off. It would happen as parents arrive with their children. Parents would be made aware that there's the parking spaces at the church available for their use. And obviously the typical parent drop off is going to be a 10-minute park to unload and drop the child at the class or at the entry and return to their car and leave.
No, you said,
ahead.
sorry, you may have gone through that more quickly than I understood. You said that there's a space at the church for pickup and drop off?
There are six spaces leased in the church parking lot that's up the hill. Okay. But obviously that's less optimal than these parking spaces on the street. I believe that PLI is going to require that we provide an accessible parking space, and we're proposing that that would be marked in front of the building. And we're also asking or hoping that we can work with Domi to get a marked drop-off loading zone during operating hours in front of the building.
Going back to, I think the proposal is for daycare, but you indicated that the occupancy is for 193. Why is that not a school? Why are you characterizing this as a daycare? Because I think you referred to students.
I only use the word students because I am in the habit of doing so. These are preschool age children. This is infants through preschool. So it's a daycare. It's a general daycare center.
But with that many children the occupancy for 193, how many employees are intended for the use?
I think I'd have to look at my code review off the top of my head. It's about a dozen, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps, the operators can speak to that in more detail.
Okay, carry on.
So that is the gist of the pickup and drop off conversation. The rest of the images in there, the additional slides are the plans of the building. We think that it's a very appropriate use for the building. It's one of the few things that we think could work well in the building. We know that, pickup and drop off is going to be a question. And obviously there's an operational incentive for the operator to make that as painless as possible and as low impact on the neighborhood as possible. So we're in the sort of unique position of trying to secure zoning approval for this, and then understanding that if we have that, there may be other arrangements that need to be made, and they've looked at other properties that are available. It's just it's dense there. So there may be opportunities to find more devoted off-street parking that's more proximate. But again, given the situation currently that the building is under an agreement, and they want to understand the certainty of their proceeding forward, none of those have firmed up, if that helps.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Are there any other materials or information that you would like to present? We can move on to the operators.
I don't think there's anything more. There was a narrative provided about pickup and drop off as part of the ZDR submission. I assume you guys are, that's available to you as well, or I can include it if it's not.
Do we have that? I don't know that we have that. It'd be helpful if you could provide that to the board, because I'm not sure that we have that as part of our materials.
Okay, I kind of assumed you guys get the ZDR submission, but
We
maybe
don't
that's incorrect.
necessarily. We
Okay.
have the exhibits that you're providing to the board. So if
Okay.
you think that's
I will make
essential
sure
for
that
us to
gets to you.
consider, then bring it to our attention. All right. So from the operator's perspective, who would like to speak with respect to what is actually being proposed here?
Hi, this is Uche. So we're proposing.
Excuse me,
about-
Uche, could you, for our court reporter who would like to understand spellings, could you spell your first and last name, please, for the court reporter?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's Uche, spelled U-C-H-E. And the last name is spelled O-N-W-U-G-B-E-N-U.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So could you explain a little bit about what the operational details? Mr. Dearson focused on the pickup and drop off, but can you explain your vision for the proposed daycare at this site?
Well, yeah, we're thinking of having kids, preschool kids from like infants to right before they get to kindergarten age. And we're thinking we have about 8 classrooms, which will require about 16 to 20 staff members to be able to handle all those kids. And we have a curriculum where the kids, we dropped off in the morning, or our staff will take over, and then they have all the different activities they have in the day. And then we also want to have like on site, meaning like a kitchen to help prepare like their meals or like snacks and things that kids need.
Is there, just recognizing that there is a building on the site, is there any outdoor area for play for the children?
And Matt, you want to talk about the?
If you return to the site plan, so that entire triangular wedge at the alley, we're proposing to have as a play area that's fenced and accessible from the gross motor room on the basement level. So yes, those two spaces will open to one another. So outdoor play is possible on the site. There's also, I mean, there is a park across Butler Street. Obviously, crossing Butler Street with kids is a little bit of an ordeal, but I think that's part of the thinking as well, that's available.
Okay. Thank you. It's one of the considerations for the special exception. Is there an outdoor play area and how is it secured? One of the other questions that I have, I'm assuming that there are state approvals required for daycares, and I'm assuming that this would not be operational without those approvals?
Oh yeah, well.
And
Sorry,
part,
no. You're
part of, don't please, and I know there's a lag on the line, but try not to talk over one another. So there's, is that in process? And I know part of the process is securing zoning approval, so there's a little chicken and egg effect.
Yes, we do have that. We did actually a second daycare that we're opening. We have one in Sheila. So yeah, we do have all the requirements and licenses in place.
Uche, my understanding is also that a certificate of occupancy is required. So we'd be beyond zoning and into, completion and legal occupancy from PLI before that would be in place.
Well, I'm just asking because that's one of the special exception requirements for this use. So
No, understood.
It's important to cover. All right. I don't have any other specific questions. Do you have any questions, Ms. Burton-Paul?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
I have one more little thing to add. I know Matt said it typically takes about 6 minutes from drop off for a parent to like drop off their kid and leave. So we try to move them faster, but it typically takes about 5 to 6 minutes. So I just wanted to have that on record.
Okay. Thank you for that as well. Mr. Richardson, any questions for the applicant?
No questions, thank you.
All right. And I'm going to turn to the list of people attending. Does anybody wish to comment or raise questions with respect to the application for 115 57th Street? If so, please raise your hand or identify yourself. All right. The iPhone.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. And what is your name, please?
My name's Aaron Cheney. I own the property behind it on Donaldson Way.
Okay. And do you swear or affirm that the information that you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I swear.
Thank you.
This is the court reporter. I'm going to need you to spell your name, please.
AARONCHANEY.
Thank you.
I own 5710 Donaldson Way. I've owned for almost 20 years. I would love to see the building get renovated and put into productive use. My major concern is the pickup and drop off and the parking. 16 employees means typically 16 vehicles. And obviously the pickup and drop off with over 100 children is pretty will change the traffic dynamic of 57th Street and possibly Donaldson Way. And I mean, this building's been empty for over 20 years, not in use. So it's going to dramatically change the street, traffic flow, the parking situation. I understand Mr. Dearson he was kind enough to speak with me the other day, and he brought up the previous occupancy permit on file. I'm just a little confused about how that has relevance since it's been empty. And once the commercial property stops being used for what it was meant to be used for, my understanding is that the occupancy permit is no longer part of the property. But I'm not an expert on this, so I'll defer to the board.
Mr. Cheney, your property is it in an H district, UI district, R1? Where is your property?
It's directly behind 115, so I presume it's the same zoning, which would be H.
Okay. All right. And do you currently have access on Donaldson Way? Is that to your parcel?
My parcel abuts 115 in the rear.
No, but how do you access your property?
Oh, from Donaldson Way.
Okay. All right. Do you have any other comments that you want to raise to the board?
I've made myself heard, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear me.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to comment with respect to the application for 115 57th Street? All right. Seeing none. Thank you all. We're going to accept the exhibits as part of the record. Mr. Dearson, you're going to supplement the record with the narrative that you mentioned, and we will take a look at that as well, too. Thank you. All right. Thank you all for being here this morning, and then we're going to move on to the next case of the morning, which is Zone Case 140 of 2024. For 5642 Bryant Street. The applicant is Anna Montano, and we have Ms. Montano raising her hand. You should be admitted as a panelist, Ms. Montano. All right, Ms. Montano, are you with us?
Hello?
Yep. Hello.
Okay.
Is there
Awesome.
is there anybody else who is going to testify with you this morning?
No, I will be the only person speaking for myself.
And do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Shepke, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 140 of 2024 for 5642 Bryant Street. The application is for the change of use of 1,000 square feet on the first floor of an existing residential structure to Retail Sales and Services Limited for Whisker Wonderland Cat Lounge and Adoption Center, and they're requesting a variance from section 911.02. Retail sales and services is prohibited in the R2 district.
All right. Well, this is a request for a use variance, so we will we have the materials up, and we will listen to your presentation, Ms. Montano. And
Okay,
I
thank you.
apologize, we do have a lag on the line, so if I interrupt, please stop and answer my question.
No problem.
Thank you.
Just so you know, I actually cannot see the materials up.
Well, I don't understand your technology,
Yeah.
so I don't know that I can
Yeah.
help you with that. It's available
No
on
problem.
Zoom. We're
so
looking
I
at
will
the
just-
first page.
Sure. I will just say the slide number just to make sure we're both on the same page here. So for slide 1, this is my proposal for 5642 Bryant Street, which is in the neighborhood of Highland Park. This is our family-owned home. It is separated into 2 apartments, each having their own entrance. The current zoning code is R2M, and I am looking to open a community-based business of a small cat lounge and adoption center in the first floor apartment. Just to note, my brother and his children do live upstairs. So slide 2, That just shows the hearing notice posted. Slide 3 is a zoning map of the area, which shows the parcel in question, highlighted in red there with the arrow. The orange section shows residential, and then the pink section is limited neighborhood commercial. So as you can see here, 5642 Bryant Street is right on the cusp of what we call the business district of Bryant Street. So slide 4, this just shows the parcel again, just for your clarity. Slide 5, also just a close-up of the parcel with the dimensions. So slide 6, you can go to slide 7. So this is the house. It's on the corner of Bryant Street and Thalia Way. The entrance to the first floor is shown by that little arrow there.
Is there, excuse me, Ms. Montano, is the first floor apartment currently being used as an apartment?
It was previously, it is currently not right now.
Well, it's not rented for occupancy, but is designed and set up for a first floor apartment unit?
It is, correct.
Okay.
Then slide 8, this just shows the entrance, a close-up of the entrance there, and then I showed the distance between the neighboring house, which is approximately 7 feet. Slide 9, this just shows again the house, and then the side street of Thalia Way, and where the fenced-in backyard is. Slide 10 just shows the backyard for your reference. Then slide 11, so these images are going to show as we start going down Bryant Street towards what we call the business district. So the New Inn Center is directly across the street, and then Joseph Tambellini Restaurant is catty-cornered. Slide 12 just shows, again, further down Bryant Street. So just to note that there are actually residences at this end as well, in addition to the storefronts and restaurants that are there. Slide 13 just shows an aerial view of the parcel for your reference. Slide 14, again, just shows where the house is in reference to the business district. Again, it's right on the cusp there.
But it's in an RM district. I mean, it's in an R2
correct.
district. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Move on.
So slide 15, I felt it was important to address parking on Bryant Street.
Well,
so this just shows-
before you get to parking, and I'm sorry to take you out of the order. We don't know what it is that you're proposing, so we don't have an understanding of what the parking needs might be. So
Correct.
Perhaps you could explain for us what it is that you're proposing to do in this space?
Sure, I can go a little bit out of order if that helps you. Let me go to if you want to go to slide 17. So my proposal is for Whisker Wonderland, which is a cat lounge and adoption center. For those who aren't familiar, a cat lounge is basically a place where people can come to visit cats and potentially adopt. So it's unique from a typical shelter in that cats roam freely. There are no cages. This is more natural for both the animals and the people. It offers a unique opportunity for people to meet multiple cats at once in a home setting. So I'll let you guys read this in your own time. But
well,
I
guess the critical components from my perspective is what are you proposing as hours of operation? Is this by appointment? How many people do you anticipate at any given time? And when you say a cafe, are you intending to serve food? What is it that you mean?
Sure. So first, if you go to slide 18, so it is not a cafe. It will just be a cat lounge. So these are all the just general logistics. The lounge will have 3 rooms, an adult cat room, a kitten room, and a what I'm calling a quiet room to specifically accommodate individuals with special needs or sensory issues. Appointments can be made online, or I will take walk-ins on a limited basis. The proposed hours are also listed here, so it would be Wednesday through Saturday from 12 to 7, and then Sundays 12 to 4. The lounge will hold approximately 10 to 12 cats total. Now, this has already been approved by animal control. I will be the only employee.
Can you pause on that for a second? What animal control regulations should we be mindful of? And when you say it's been approved by animal control, what does that mean? I mean, isn't there a limitation to the number of cats that you're? Can you excuse me? Can you let me finish my question, because the court reporter can only take down one voice at a time? I'm curious about the number of domestic animals that are permitted in a single residence, and how does this differ from, I know you said that this is different than an animal shelter, but we do have provisions in the zoning code for that type of use. So can you explain what types of approvals animal control is considering here?
Sure. So according to the website for the city of Pittsburgh, in a home setting, there's a requirement of 5 animals or less in a setting. There is a notation about getting basically a permit that allows you to have more. So I did inquire about that with the supervisor of animal control. His name's Dave Fadden, and he did let me know that because the business license dictates that this is a foster to adopt situation, that I'm exempt from that, and I'm permitted to have more animals than the 5.
So when you pardon me though, you discussed this with the person from animal control, but has animal control actually reviewed anything and issued an approval?
So they actually, it sounded like from what he was saying that they hadn't really done this before. Most of the cat lounges are outside of the city limits. So I don't know if that necessarily applies there. However, because this is within city limits, I wanted to make sure that I was abiding by the laws here.
But you're proposing cats in a home setting where the limitation would typically be no more than 5.
Correct.
Okay. And how many animals are you proposing at any given time?
10 to 12 max. And when I say approved by animal control, he just made a documentation in his file regarding this so that there wouldn't be any issues legally.
Okay. Well, I mean, we have zoning approvals too that we have to consider. So carry on.
Okay, so if we're still on slide 18, then the cats are rescues, and they would come from my rescue partner, which is Conquer the Colony. They're a small cat rescue in Pittsburgh. The rescue does cover all of the vetting costs and medical costs. And then all of the cats in the lounge will be fully vaccinated, defleed, dewormed, spayed, neutered, microchipped, and tested for FIV, FELV. Would you like me to address parking now, or should I continue?
I was going to say, again, now that we have a general sense, please, parking.
Okay.
Is there parking on site for the existing residential use?
So if we go to slide 15, all of the parking is actually just, it's considered no permit parking, so it would be street parking. I did look at the surrounding area and kind of counted, looked where people would potentially park to come here. And it looks like in that vicinity there that about 50% of people do have their own off-street parking, and then 50% rely on street parking.
But
So-
can you, specifically, the subject property, is there parking available on that parcel for the current residential use?
No, there's only on-street parking, no off-street, no garage or parking pad.
Okay, carry on, thank you.
I'd also just like to note that I am limiting the amount of people at one time to a maximum of 10. Now, that is very unlikely that there's going to be 10 people at once. My expected visitors are going to be within 2 to 6 per day, so it's not going to be a lot of people. It should not add significantly to foot traffic on the street there. If we could jump ahead then to slide 19. So I don't want to go over my time too much here, but I just wanted to...
You're permitted to present your case, so.
Okay, great, thank you. So slide 19, just to help the board understand why a cat lounge is so critical. I've been involved in cat rescue for the last 3.5 to 4 years, and recently, especially the last 2 years, there's been a huge increase in cats that have been living on the streets. This has really created an enormous burden on the city and its residents. So currently, we don't have any city programs to help educate the community on what to do. So when people find cats, the few rescues that are currently available are completely overwhelmed. So one of my goals here is to really just help educate the community, to create this place where people can come and ask questions, and get the support that they need as well. I'm on the email list for Highland Park as well as Nextdoor, and there's frequent requests for help or questions. So far, we only have 2 large rescues in our city, and they do have a 6-month wait list or longer for surrenders, meaning cats that people found or that need help. So this is like a special what I would call really a community project to help not only to educate but to help people increase adoptions as well.
Well, I appreciate that, excuse me, but I appreciate that you have a passion for the mission of saving cats and providing the educational component and doing the rescue service. But we're talking about a proposed use in a residential district. And for a variance, there are specific standards for that, which require a demonstration of a hardship associated with the property, not the need for the proposed use. So what we're looking at is there a hardship associated with the property that prevents its use for what's allowed in that district? And I appreciate that you're near an LNC, a local neighborhood commercial district, but the parcel itself isn't in R2. So the permitted uses in R2 don't include this type of commercial use. So why is it that the property can't be used for the uses that are permitted in that district?
Sure. So if you could actually jump to slide 25. This is where I address the zoning regulations.
Well, okay, you can. I appreciate that you are referring to this as a de minimis variance, and we will consider that as a legal argument. But you also have to address the components of a variance standard should the board find it necessary to apply the actual variance standards, as opposed to treating this as a de minimis. And I would say de minimis are typically not for use variances, but typically relate to, the setback requirement is 10 feet, and I have I have 9. It's not a commercial use in a residential property. So again, I'd like to have your understanding of how this proposal complies with the actual variance standards.
Correct. So I did look at the five stipulations for a use variance. And in doing a little more research, I did look into the de minimis variance simply because I believe that the proposed use is still with the intent and spirit of the ordinance. And you are correct. Most cases do apply to dimensional variances. However, I would like to just direct the board to the Solond versus the zoning hearing board.
And again,
case.
this is an opportunity to present evidence, and we will look at the legal argument. But again, to address the legal argument that you're trying to make, if you're saying that this is a de minimis variance, I want to know what it's de minimis from. Just because you think that this is a nice use that should be okay in a neighborhood, what is the standard that you're saying is only being modified in a minimal way?
Sure. If you would look at slide 26, these are the reasons that I feel that my proposal for use is compatible with de minimis, as it presents a unique situation and can be improved for the following reasons.
Well, we could read your legal argument that, like I said, I'm looking for specific facts. And again, are you making a comparison between, are you saying that this is de minimis because it could be considered a home occupation, not a commercial use? Correct.
So I understand that under the home occupation section of the code that I would technically need to be a resident. However, being that it is a family home and my brother lives there, I feel that it would be very likely to be permitted as home occupation if I were actually living there. If my brother was not living there, it would be simple for me to move there and live there. I do believe that this proposed use really has zero impact on the public interest, and it's not going to be noticeable from outside. So no outside alterations will be made to the building. It looks like a house. It will continue to look like a house. The proposed use is also in conformity with the commercial uses that surround it. And being that I'm the only employee and there's limited people that would be coming, I feel that this does fall under the home occupancy code.
Okay.
I do have a few questions, Madam Chair.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to present in terms of evidence? Because I think there's some questions both from the other board members. But did you have anything else that you wanted to bring to our attention?
I think I've outlined most of the things. There are a few more slides, but
well,
it's
we'll
kind
take
of what
the
I've already
full
dictated. Yes.
We'll take the full slide package as part of the record. But Ms. Burton-Falk, did you have specific questions for the applicant?
Can you confirm that you are allowing or proposing 10 people at a time capable of being at the Cat Lounge?
That would be a maximum at one time.
Okay, and what would be, you're the only employee, what would be the number of volunteers that would also be present and at one time? So this would overlap with the guests, I'm assuming, or the people that are coming?
The potential would be for one volunteer if needed.
Okay. And then another quick question I had is, much like a restaurant, a type of business like that, there's health department oversight. Is there some level of oversight with this type of cat lounge, I mean, does somebody come and ensure that the premise is being kept in a specific way, like a typical shelter, like Animal Friends or Humane Society or something like that? Because this is double plus the allowable.
Right. Actually, since I'm not selling or making food, the health department is actually not involved in that, but the only department that would be involved would be animal control. And I'm happy to have them make visits or do whatever they feel is necessary. Unfortunately, in our city, there's only 2 humane officers, so they're very stretched for time. Of course, I am always welcome to have any of them come and see the place, but there's not. I understand this is kind of a niche business. It's kind of a newer thing, so the laws have maybe not caught up to everything yet. But I just want to note for the record that I'm absolutely always available for anyone to come and visit and check things out.
Thank you for answering the questions.
Okay. All right. Mr. Richardson, did you have any additional questions for the applicant?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to turn to the list of people attending. Would anybody like to, I'm going to do this in 2 phases here. Is there anybody who would like to speak in support of the application? And if you're speaking in support, all you need to do is say whatever Anna said, or I agree with the application. And then we'll turn to anybody who's objecting to the proposed use. So anybody speaking on behalf of the applicant? I have a hand raised from Michelle Cavalier.
Yes, I'm not in support of the proposal.
Okay, and sorry, do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board was be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And can you tell us where you live in proximity to the proposed use?
Yes, I own the property at 5650 Bryan Street, so it's just 2 doors down from the Montana residence. And parking is already a major issue on Bryan Street with all of the businesses there. And, it's been great to have the business development on Bryan Street that's occurred. But I don't feel like this proposed business really brings any benefit to the community.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, Ms. Cavalier. I was I was hoping that we were going to get any supporters first, and it sounds like you're not in support of the application?
Yes, that's what I said in my first statement.
I'm sorry, I did not hear you. Thank you. But we'll take your comment. So your concern is about parking?
Yes, not just parking. Do you want me to continue, or do you?
Yeah, no, carry on.
Okay. I don't feel like this proposed business really brings any benefit to the community, and only creates issues again with the parking. That is really a major problem. And I also have concerns about how this business would be monitored. I mean, if animal control doesn't really have the manpower to assure the neighbors that the cats are vaccinated and that it's limited to 10 at any given time, which, if there are only 2 of them, I really doubt that this would be monitored adequately. And I am a property owner of several apartment buildings in Pittsburgh, and I've had tenants with cats. I know the smell they bring with them, especially in numbers as great as that. And that smell does affect the neighbors. And I know I'm not right next door, but the house in between us most certainly will be able to smell the odor created by that number of animals inside a dwelling. So I am really concerned with that. And again, with the parking, I mean, if the petitioner is saying that, you know, they're limiting the visits to 10 people at a time, well, that's as many as 10 parking spaces being used up. And that's a real hardship for people who live right there. I mean, this is all residential right here, except for like across the street, the Newton Center, but they do have their own parking, but even that isn't sufficient to accommodate all the people that go there. So
I think we understand the nature of your concerns, and I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to have everybody have a chance to speak. So if there's
I just do have one question, if you could answer.
You can ask a question, but we're going to hold all questions for response until everybody's had an opportunity to speak.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I can wait.
Well, no, you're not going to get it. So what is your question? It's just not going to be answered immediately.
Okay, so I'm just confused by how Miss Montana can even request this variance, not being the property owner. I understand it's a family home, but she doesn't actually own the home.
There are all sorts of property interests that can allow for an application. If the property owner authorizes the application, you don't have to own the property. If you have a equitable interest in property, you can submit a zoning application.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right.
Okay,
so
I'm sorry. This is the court reporter. I need a spelling on your name, Miss Cavalier, first and last name, please.
Sure. MICHELEKAV as in Victor, ALIR.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And again, I'm going to ask anybody who's in support of the application if you raise your hand, please. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So I'm going to turn to anybody else who would like to speak in opposition to the application. And I'm seeing three hands. First hand is Justin Crowley. Mr. Crowley.
Hi, yes, I'm Justin Crowley.
And I'm going to start with, do you swear or affirm that the information that you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And could you spell your name for the court reporter?
Justin, last name Crowley, Crowley.
Right. Mr. Crowley, can you explain what your position is with respect to this application?
So I'm the neighbor at 5646 Bryant Street, and I did submit written testimony.
Okay, we'll make note of that.
So I would just highlight some concerns. As actually was pointed out by Ms. Montano, the proximity to my porch is only a few feet, right? Their entrance is right on the property line, and that would, bring traffic immediately by my porch, my front porch, where I've, put out chairs and, enjoy sitting out there sometimes, but now I've got, foot traffic, into the neighbor's house, as many as 10 people at a time. I think that's undesirable in a, residential zoned area. Parking, as has been mentioned already, is a significant concern, especially during the workday, between the, local businesses and the Newton Center. The street fills up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The restaurant on the corner, Tambolini's, brings a lot of people in from out of town. If I, leave my parking, I only have street parking. I have no off-street parking. If I leave my parking space during the day or on a, say a Saturday afternoon or evening, I'm going to have to park, blocks away. That's a concern, and I don't see it getting better with, 8 to 10 people at a time. I'd be concerned about odor, as has been previously, highlighted. And I'm concerned, I'm on the edge of a business district, but I am not zoned for business. So if I were to decide to sell my house at some point in the future, I think this would have a very negative impact on my property value. People aren't looking to live next to an active business if they're, wanting a single family home, which is what mine is. The petition for a variance suggested that there would be no exterior modifications, but it's hard to imagine that a business wouldn't have signage. And if the business has signage, then I think there's a direct impact on property values. So I really can't support this and would vigorously object to it.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. We will take note of both your testimony and your written submission.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. The next hand raised is Becky Kolbia.
Hello.
Hi, and I'm going to ask, do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And can you spell, thank you, and could you spell your name for the court reporter?
Sure, Rebecca, Rebecca, and my last name, Sulba, Cully, B as in Bravo, A.
And can you tell us where you live in proximity to the to the subject property here and what your concerns are?
Sure. Our address is 1151 Mellon Street, and our property in the backyard is adjacent to the property that Ms. Montano is presenting her case for today. So our backyard is adjacent to that backyard, and we share the alley, Thalia Way.
Okay.
So my husband and I do not support this zoning request. We are also very concerned about sanitation and property values. Although Ms. Montano today said that she is not proposing any external modifications to the resident in materials that were placed on our front porch, she's proposing to build a shed of some sort for the trash in the alleyway. That alone tells you the amount of garbage that is expected. We're very concerned about the fact that if there is a lack of staffing for animal control, how these animals will be ensured, actually their own safety and sanitation with proper ventilation, proper facilities so that escapes don't happen, sanitation so that we don't have animals in the alley with the garbage and again, a couple times people have mentioned the odor. We purchased this home over 10 years ago to live in a residential neighborhood, and we feel that this changes that and therefore could change our own property values. Similar to what's been said before, we can't imagine that there wouldn't be signage going on the street. And when we have guests coming, people sometimes do have to park a couple blocks away. So I can't imagine that parking wouldn't impact the neighborhood as well. Thank you.
And thank you for that. We appreciate your comments, and thank you for testifying this morning. The next person on the list is Ernie Hogan.
Yes.
And Mr. Hogan, do you swear or affirm that the information that you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you spell your name for the court reporter? Thank you.
Sure. The name is Ernest, E-R-N-E-S-T, last name Hogan, H-O-G-A-N.
And where do you live in proximity to the subject property, and what are your concerns?
I live on Portland Street, right around the corner from the subject property. And my concerns are primarily similar to what has already been presented. But on top of that, a couple other things I'd like to note. The subject property has been built and operated as a residential structure from its beginning. I'm very concerned about a non-conforming use being approved, expanding a commercial district that currently already has available space and opportunities, so it could be easily this business accommodated in their already zoned area. Lastly, I'm very concerned because non-conforming uses once approved as a commercial reuse, even if Ms. Montana's, and we always hope that our businesses are successful, but if she is not, that use will stay with that building and could become almost anything afterwards, a tattoo parlor or whatever, once that variance is granted. Lastly, I'd like to note that the Highland Park community has a community plan, although stale, notes that any expansion of non-conforming use in the neighborhood should be opposed. And so, again, this is one of those situations where we're introducing a commercial use into a residential core, and as noted by others, parking and the infiltration of other outside forces into the neighborhood as a result of the commercial district does have a negative influence on the value of my home. And as noted, I concern that, we already have a stress situation as our business district becomes more successful. So again, this site is really a very tight, constrained site. I believe that since she is not an occupant to the property or so on, the de minimis use proposed argument is invalid, and this is really a non-conforming use ask. Thank you.
Well, it's a request for a variance, but we appreciate your comments and your perspective, so thank you for that. Ms. Montano, I'm going to turn back to you. I think you've presented your case, but there were some specific questions with respect to the proposed use. Again, the shed in the back and how you intend to address odors from the proposed use. And
Sure.
I think we've gone over parking and your perspective as compared to the neighbor's perspective, but those, and signage. Signage was the other one that I took particular note of.
Yes. First, I just want to make sure that the board did receive the written testimony from the supporters.
We did.
They could not be here
I was going to
today.
note that at the end of the hearing, that we do have written, but we listen to the people who show up too, so.
Sure. So in regards to, there was a couple comments that were made about the the animal control only having 2 members. I think that was actually, that was confused because what I was saying was humane officers, there are 2. Animal control is fully staffed for the city to cover the city. So I just want to make sure that's clear. There's no staffing issue with animal control. So they do have the manpower to come and make visits. And then the signage. Yes, you are correct. There would be a small sign that will comply with whatever the zoning stipulations dictate for the size, etc. And then I did want to address one thing that was brought up about, which I do totally understand, that if there is a use variance granted, that if the home were to be sold or whatever, that there's concern about a different business moving in. I do totally understand that and have thought about that. However, if I agree to follow the guidelines of home occupation, then that would actually terminate if the business were to leave or if the house were to be sold. So that should, I would hope, would help to ease some of that concern. And then to just address the garbage, so totally get it. I do have rescues in my home. I know what the garbage is like, and I know this is just me saying this, but from experience, that the smell is not coming from the home is not something that you would be able to smell. Now, when I spoke about building like a small shed for the garbage, that was just to help the neighborhood to feel comfortable knowing that the garbage will be completely contained so that no raccoons or anything would be able to get inside and make a mess. I just want to just reiterate that this is something that, you know, I've put a lot of thought into, and I really want to be helpful to the neighborhood, and I want it to be positive. I don't want it to be a nuisance in any way. So, you know, the purpose is really to be a support to the community.
All right, we do have the, where's our feedback? Okay.
You're good now.
Okay. Sorry, we had a little feedback on the line there. I am going to take note that we did receive comments and letters from supporters and objectors, which we will also make part of the record. We're going to close the record for today, and thank you all for attending and presenting your testimony. And we will issue our decision within the time permitted under the code. Thank you all.
We have Mr. McNulty for
We
the...
do.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to Mr. McNulty. Mr. McNulty, this is the application originally scheduled for 9 o'clock at 106 South Linden Avenue. And I do see that Mr. McNulty has joined us. So, Mr. McNulty, are you with us? If you could unmute.
Yes, thank
there
you.
There you are. Okay.
Sorry for disrupting your agenda this morning.
Well, we had to move on from your case, but we did ask to if anybody on at 9 o'clock was interested in or concerned about your application, and nobody spoke up. So that's why we bumped you to the end, and you got to hear about the proposal in Highland Park. So this is zone case 144 of 2024 for 106 South Linden Avenue. We do have the applicant, Timothy McNulty. Mr. McNulty, do you swear or affirm that the information that you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Shepke, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 144 of 2024 for 106 South Linden Avenue. The application is for a 6-foot-high fence in an exterior side and rear yard, and they're requesting a variance from section 912.04.L. 4-foot-high fence is permitted in the exterior side yard, and a 6-foot-high closed fence is proposed.
All right, Mr. McNulty, can you explain where the proposed fence would be and why it would need to be 6 feet as opposed to the 4 feet permitted?
Yes. So my request, Dan, if you want maybe hit the next slide, is to replace an existing fence that the previous owner placed there in late 90s or early 2000s. The objective is really both privacy and noise control, as well as to, part of enhancing the look along Penn Avenue. If Danny, if you want to go to the next slide. So it's the site plan. The yellow highlights the stretch along Penn and the adjoining 30 feet of the interior fence. The interior fence was installed by me in 2008. It is also a wood paneled fence.
But the portion that we're looking at is there is an existing fence that it looks to be at 6 feet and is a privacy fence along Penn Avenue.
Yes. Which
is a heavily trafficked roadway in the city. Right. And what you're proposing to do is a sort of an in-kind replacement of that existing fence?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, just replace it. It is starting to fall at the one end, and clearly for both beautification and pedestrian safety, I think needs to be replaced.
Well, and just on the beautification side, some fences come with both sides finished, but I'm presuming that you're proposing to put the more finished side or a finished side facing Penn Avenue as opposed to the interior of your parcel?
Correct. My objective is after the installation, we'll have it stained and sealed.
Okay, and the fence would not extend fully to the front of your property on Linden.
Correct. I measured, the original installation is, I think, 21 feet from the intersection, and it would not extend beyond what is existing.
So the fence as proposed at 6 feet wouldn't affect drivers who are either turning from Linden onto Penn or from Penn onto Linden?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. There'd be no change in the visibility at the intersection.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Ms. Burton-Falk or Mr. Richardson, any questions from the applicant?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
All right.
No questions, thank you.
All right. Mr. McNulty, thank you for holding in, and we will...
I just would like to add appreciation to Tiffany and Daniel for the strong assistance and support and the high quality of the chat function on the one stop. I may have proved that it's idiot proof, so I appreciate
I don't know. I've tried it too. So, but thank you for being here this morning, Mr. McNulty, and again, apologize for flipping you on the schedule, but
my fault.
That's
My
what
fault.
happens.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to close the hearings for the day. Thank you, everybody, for attending.